When talking about the choice between Trump and Kamala, it would seem that some people have forgotten how bad everything was under Trump. It seems as if they have amnesia, having forgotten the pain of those years. Now, let me tell you, it is easy to forget painful experiences. It's how our mind protects us, because sometimes those painful events are too hard and stressful on us. Let me tell you of something that happened to me 14 years ago. I was working on the loading dock when a 4,000-pound forklift ran me over. It broke 3 of the bones in my foot. A year later, I had healed and I was back on that loading dock working when another fellow was trying to load a big, heavy metal pipe. I mean, it was, I don't know how heavy it was, but it was probably between 5 to 1,000 pounds. Now, he was pushing it on a hand truck when it slipped off. And I, even though I had blocked that memory in my mind of the pain, instantly, all the memory of how painful it was and how painful it'd be if that pipe landed on my foot flashed back in my mind. And I kid you not, I moved as if I was 15. You know, at that point I was in my late 50s, and here I was moving like a teenager. I performed what we used to call a mule kick, shooting my feet straight back and doing a belly flop on that pipe. It probably was funny looking to anyone watching on. My point here is that even though I had suppressed the memory of that pain, it was still in my subconscious. In the same way, people have suppressed the memory of how bad life was under the Trump administration. I want to pull that memory out of your subconscious. To do this, we need a little history lesson. Forget for a minute about the stress and anxiety that Trump created. Forget for a minute about the hate and division that Trump encouraged. Forget for a minute about the million Americans dying because Trump ignored the warnings about COVID. Forget for a minute about being unable to buy toilet paper because the store shelves were empty. Forget for a minute about Trump being responsible for the overturning of Roe and endangering the lives of countless women. Forget for a minute about Trump forget for a minute about Trump telling over 30,000 lies in 4 years. Forget for a minute about Trump stirring up racial bigotry and embracing white supremacists. Forget for a minute about Trump's 34 felony convictions and having committed some of the most awful crimes against women. Forget for a minute about Trump setting up the Taliban rise back into power in Afghanistan. And forget for a minute about Trump laying the groundwork for Putin's invasion of Iraq by weakening NATO. For a minute, let's focus on the economy. For to some, they only have an economic choice in this election. I want you to take note of this chart behind me. Excuse me. This is a chart of the economy over the years. Okay. What we have here is since 2008. And if you notice at the top, Bush was just leaving office and President Obama was coming in. Barack Obama had been handed a country in economic collapse. We used to call that the Republican Great Recession, similar to the Republican Great Depression of a century ago. Originally, the Great Depression was called the Republican Great Depression because, instead of just the Great Depression, because people realized that Republicans had caused that Great Depression. Now I won't get back to what caused that Great Depression a little bit later. When President Obama began his administration, we were locked in the Republican Great Recession. It took time to pull us out of that recession. Remember the rule, my friends. For the first 2 years, a new president is either riding the wave of success or failure of the last president. That is so important. I want to repeat that. For the first 2 years, a new president is riding the wave of success or failure of the last president. For 2 years, President Obama struggled and worked hard, and Obama and Biden rebuilt the economy. As we can see, it started here. Now, from the years 2011 through 2018, we were in the Obama economy. In 2011, I, like millions of Americans, was able to buy my first house thanks to the efforts of the team of Obama and Biden. As you can see from this chart, from 2011, 2018, the economy soared because it was the Obama economy. It took Trump 2 years to reverse the progress of President Obama, and we were now in the Trump economy. See, right here. This is how we started. And remember the rule. For the first 2 years, of the new president. He's riding either the wave of success or failure of the last president. And for the first 2 years, the economy did fairly well, stayed up there. It didn't go any higher because Trump had began to put his policies into effect, which were damaging it. That afterwards, we were in the Trump economy. That Trump economy lasted from 2018 to 2022. And you can see it wasn't good. When President Biden was elected and took over, it took Biden 2 years to start to pull us out of the Trump recession. Remember the rule. A new president is riding the wave of success or failure of the last president for the first 2 years. Trump did the same thing to the country that he did to each of his companies. You remember those companies that Trump bankrupted, right? Why would anyone want a failure like Donald Trump back? Some people have amnesia. We can't blame them for trying to suppress the pain of the Trump years. What's upsetting is those who know the truth and choose to lie. There are some who are just as dishonest as Donald Trump. I was arguing with a fellow the other night, and it was pretty clear that he was being disingenuous. He tried to say Kamala Harris said to Christians in the rally, "You're in the wrong rally," when that was a lie. And said they should be in the Trump rally. The fact is, these were anti-choice hecklers that were trying to shut her down. And she very quickly and well said, "Well, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong rally. You want the smaller rally down the road," because everything about Donald Trump is, well, shall we say, tiny. When I called him on his dishonesty, he disappeared. When I checked his account, guess what? It was one of those fake accounts. The guy didn't even have enough honesty to use his real account or real name. Right now, we are enjoying the thriving economy created by the team of Biden and Harris, and it's going up. It's doing really good. Yes, the damage was done by Trump, and it was severe, but we are almost out of the worst of it. We would be further along if the GOP would get out of the way, but they have been trying to sabotage the recovery so they can gain more power. It's just like when Trump killed the border bill so he could have that as something to run on. These Republicans in Congress have been trying to derail the economy to help it win in November. They are putting their lust for ego and their lust for power ahead of the nation's safety and prosperity. For a moment, let's jump from looking at the past to looking to the future. You may ask, how can we know what the future will be like? Well, even though we don't have a crystal ball, we can get a good idea what the future will hold by looking at the past. Einstein is credited without any proof of saying the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Even though Einstein may have never said it, it's a good point. If we drop rock after rock to the ground, it becomes clear that they will always fall down and not up. The same is true with historical events, even eventually one should figure out that doing the same thing will yield the same results. We all have heard Trump's limited economic plans, or I have concepts. So let's examine how these have worked in the past. To see the future, we look to the past. Look back a century ago. We can witness what Republicans did to bring on the Great Depression. There were 5 factors that caused the Great Depression. Number 1, right down here, tax cuts for the wealthy. From the year 1920 to 1932, there were 3 Republican presidents. Each of them had the same Secretary of the Treasury, a man named Andrew Mellon. Mr. Mellon wanted to reduce the tax rate on the wealthy from 77% down to 10%. Where he was unable to reduce it to 10%, he was able to reduce the tax on the wealthy down to 25%. Mr. Mellon and the Republicans in Congress argued that the country could afford to reduce the income for our budget to run this country by cutting programs that help the poor and the middle class. This was a 52% cut in the taxes on the wealthy, and it led to a temporary glut and extra money in the hands of the well-to-do. I'm sure that everyone has heard of the Roaring '20s, and the wealthy began to make risky investments. The wise way to invest is you put 10% of your disposable cash into safe, secure places like a bank account or insurance savings account. That gives you a pool of money to fall back on when trouble comes your way, as it does to all of us. Then you take, roughly 70% and put it into mildly risky investments that are most likely going to pay off. And when they do pay off, it's in between a 10% to a 20% payoff. You're not going to get rich quick, but you will continue to build up wealth over your life so one day you can retire with decency. Then you take a chance with the remaining 20% or so. And you put that disposable, excuse my tongue getting tied, disposable cash into high risk investments. Those are the types, if they pay off, can lead to huge gains, but you are just as likely to lose all of your investments. That's why you don't put all of your money into those high risks. This is a type of formula that's likely to allow you to grow wealth over a lifetime. However, too many put all of their disposable cash into high risk investments and lose everything. With a temporary flood of cash, the wealthy began to gamble rather than invest it. There was the illusion that this extra cash was going to continue. And as anyone knows, you get a raise, you start to increase your spending. So let's say you were making, let's say $30 an hour. You just got a raise to 40. Well, when you were at $30 an hour, you were managing to spend all $30 an hour on your needs and wants. Now you're at 40. At first, hey, I got extra money. Before long, you're spending every dime because you found other things that you want. With their gambling on their investments and Republicans cutting the regulations on those investments, this meant that there was no policing to protect the public from those investments. And many lost all of their money. Some went from living in mansions, like in Beverly Hills, to living in makeshift villages built on city dumps. Those were called Hoovervilles, named after Hoover, who was president when the Great Depression hit. So the first thing Republicans did that led to the Great Depression was cutting taxes on the wealthy, regulations, and programs that helped the rest of us. The second thing was the stock market crash. All of those risky investments led to the stock market crash of 1929. This is when the Republican Great Depression started. The crash shattered confidence in the American economy, resulting in a sharp reduction in spending and investments in American businesses. The third thing was, with few regulations on banks and the lack of an FDIC to ensure the deposits, a bank panic started in the early 1930s, causing bank failure after bank failure. This decreased the pool of money available for loans. This led to the closing of businesses, and with the closing of those businesses, people lost their jobs. Remember that there was no such thing as unemployment insurance in those days, and some Republicans today want to end unemployment insurance also. The fourth factor was the gold standard, which regulated foreign central banks, which required foreign central banks to raise interest rates, and that caused a contraction of trade and an imbalance in the United States. This caused the United States to go deeper into that Great Depression, and it spread worldwide. Yes, the Great Depression began in the United States and it went everywhere. The fifth factor, and this is real important to note, there was a Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. The final and fifth factor was that the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, which imposed steep tariffs on many of those industries and agricultural goods. This was an invitation for other countries to retaliate with their own tariffs on American goods. This caused an increase in prices and a reduction in purchases. All poisoned the economy. All of these factors gave us the Republican Great Depression. Take note of how many of these things Donald Trump wants to employ. This is why we can be sure that Trump will give us another recession, maybe a great recession, maybe a depression, like the Republicans have given us time over time. Now, take a look. If Trump gets back in, excuse me while I move over and get the chart to show the future. The tape doesn't want to come loose, figures. There we go. Okay. Trump economy. If he gets back in, you will see for the first 2 years, remember we're still having the rule for the first 2 years, he'll be riding the wave of success of Biden because we'll still be in the Biden economy. But his plans will start to strictly cause the economy to drop. Maybe it'll be even worse. Now, Trump wants to cut taxes like they did, like Mr. Mellon did, sparking the Republican Great Depression. I know some argue that when Mr. Mellon cut the taxes on the wealthy, it sparked the roaring 20s, a boom in the economy. However, what some miss is that the tax rate before Mr. Mellon did that for the wealthy was 77%. Today, it's only 37%. There won't be enough money to cause any real spark. Oh, there'll be a little bit extra for the wealthy, but not for you and me, and you and I will be the ones suffering. When cutting the tax rate on the wealthy will grant them more wealth, it won't be enough to create any prosperity, but it will be enough to send us spiraling into another Republican Great Depression, one that we might not ever recover from. This is in addition to Trump imposing blind tariffs will doom us in the future. As I pointed out, that is the best estimate. It could be the economy totally collapse just because of Trump's mishandling. As you can see, Trump's economy will not be good. It may be even worse, but not better. I mean, you can't drop rock after rock and they all fall down and then expect some to go up. Doing the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We've seen what cutting taxes and imposing tariffs have done in the past. Why would you think something different would happen? Now, if we elect Kamala Harris, we can be sure that the economy will continue to improve. Take a look at what the economy will be like under Harris. Most likely it will continue to grow. It might even get better because some of the things that she will be doing, especially if we can give her a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House to help stop the gouging at the grocery store and the cost of housing. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I understand how you can predict that Trump will bring on a recession or worse. But how can you be sure Kamala will be able to continue the great economy that Joe Biden has started? To answer that, we need another look back at history. Remember how Republicans gave us a Great Depression? It was FDR, a liberal Democratic president, who pulled us out of that Republican Great Depression. He did this by instituting the largest tax hike on the wealthy in history. And he created programs that protected the public, such as the FDIC, and other programs that put Americans back to work. FDR called this his New Deal. A historical point here, my friends, is that throughout history, we've had recessions, economic depressions, and bank failures just about every 10 to 15 years. That is until FDR created the protections through the New Deal. There were no recessions, depressions, or bank failures until Ronald Reagan began to dismantle the New Deal protections. Ronald Reagan wanted to, once again, cut taxes on the wealthy, and we ended up with another Republican recession. That lasted until Bill Clinton reversed it. He did a modest tax increase on the wealthy, and he balanced the budget, which Republican George W. Bush used to cut taxes on the wealthy once again. And we ended up in the Republican Great Recession. And guess what? Both of those recessions had bank failures. As we have seen, President Obama turned it around, created a thriving economy which Donald Trump tried to steal the credit for. Trump then cut taxes once again on the wealthy and gave us the Trump recession. Now the team of Biden and Harris have reversed the damage done by Trump. We have moved back into an economic upward trajectory. Why? Why would you want to go downward? We can continue to move upward, or we can return to the policies of failure, which gave us recession after recession and all out economic depressions. So if the only issue for you in this election is the economy, there's only one choice: Kamala Harris. Of course, there are some greedy billionaires who just want more money and more power. If they get their ways, all of us will suffer. Please, my friends, let's keep America great for all of us, and not just for the wealthy. For me, I would rather be dead than live under Trump's dictatorship. That's right. Trump wants a dictatorship. And for me, that's worse than the economy. He wants an authoritarian government where his word is law and what he says goes. And you, by God, if he says jump, you better ask how high. And if you dare say anything that's not high praise, you might just find yourself in a concentration camp. That's what Donald Trump has in store for us. For me, that's worse than the economic horrible crush that he will bring. I don't want the United States to become like Russia, become like North Korea. But some Some people foolishly think that living under an authoritarian government would be preferable. Let me tell you, it won't be. You might be thinking, well, those liberals will get theirs. I got to tell you something. Every time a dictatorship comes in, it turns on its own. And those people who help get them into power end up in those same concentration camps if they're lucky. More likely they end up dead. So I say, give me liberty or give me death. Thank you.